The strange thing about resentment is that it often begins before anything actually happens. You see their name appear on your phone. You have not even read the message yet, but your body already knows. Your shoulders drop. Your stomach tightens a little. Some part of you is already preparing to become the version of yourself they usually need. Patient, available, understanding, easy. Then the message comes. Could you help me with something? And before you have time to ask yourself whether you actually can, you are already thinking about how to answer without making them feel bad. Not what is true, what is safe. So you type, "Sure, no problem." And the moment you send it, something in you goes quiet. For a few seconds, everything looks fine. They feel supported. You look kind. The relationship stays peaceful. No one has to deal with the truth that your yes did not come from freedom. It came from pressure. Later, when you are alone, the anger comes, and then the guilt. Because they asked nicely, you agreed, you made it sound easy. So why do you feel resentful? Why do you feel distant from people you are trying so hard to care for? Why does helping sometimes make you feel less connected, not more? Maybe your resentment is not proof that you are unkind. Maybe it is the part of you that has been saying no quietly for a long time. People-pleasing does not always feel like a decision. Sometimes it feels like something your body learned before your mind can even think. Someone asks, your energy drops, your chest tightens. You feel the pressure to answer quickly because a slow answer might already sound like rejection. So you say yes. Not because you have checked your capacity, not because the yes feels generous and alive, but because saying no would create a moment you do not know how to hold. A pause, a change in their face, a shift in their tone. The possibility that they might think of you differently, less caring, less reliable, less easy. So your yes protects you from that moment. It keeps the connection smooth. It keeps the room comfortable. It saves you from having to watch someone become disappointed in real time. But the problem with a yes that comes too fast is that your real answer often arrives later. In the car, in the shower, at night when the conversation is already over. Suddenly you know, I did not want to do that. I do not have the energy. I needed space. I should have said something. But now the moment is gone. The no has nowhere to go, so it turns into irritation, then distance, then resentment. Sometimes resentment is a no that arrived too late. Psychologist Dana Crowley Jack called this kind of pattern self-silencing, holding back your own feelings, needs, and thoughts to protect connection. That matters because silence is not always empty. Sometimes silence is full of things you were afraid to say. In everyday life, self-silencing can look like saying, "I'm fine," before you know if you are fine. It can look like agreeing because disagreement feels too risky. It can look like keeping the relationship calm by removing the part of you that might disturb it, your hesitation, your tiredness, your limit, your real answer. They think they got your answer, but really, they only got the answer you felt safe giving. And after enough moments like that, people know they can come to you, but you stop knowing how to check in with yourself before answering. Kindness is not the problem. Most of the time, you really do care. You care when someone is struggling. You care when someone trusts you. You care when someone needs support. That is what makes this so confusing, because the resentment does not always come from a lack of love. Sometimes it comes from the way love gets mixed with fear. Kindness and people-pleasing can look almost the same from the outside. Both can look like helping. Both can look like patience. Both can look like being the person everyone can count on. But inside, they are different. Kindness says, I choose to care. People-pleasing says, I am afraid of what will happen if I do not. Kindness can include a no. People-pleasing treats every no like a threat to love. This is why praise can hurt in a way you do not know how to explain. Someone says, "You are always so easygoing," and you smile because it sounds like love. But something in you tightens because you know what that sentence also means. It means they are used to a version of you that does not interrupt the room with a need. It means they like the part of you that absorbs things quietly. It means if you suddenly become honest, it may feel to them like you changed, even though what really changed is that you finally stopped hiding the cost. That is the quiet pressure of being known as good. People may genuinely appreciate you. They may genuinely love this version of you. But they may also depend on the fact that this version rarely makes them uncomfortable. And after a while, you are not only tired of helping, you are tired of being needed more than you are known. For many people, this did not begin as weakness. It began as protection. Maybe being easy once kept things calm. Maybe staying quiet helped you avoid criticism. Maybe being useful made you feel wanted. Maybe needing less made you feel safer. Maybe you learned that the fastest way to keep connection was to become less complicated. So you became good at sensing what other people needed. You knew when someone was disappointed before they said it. You noticed when the room changed. You knew when to soften your voice, when to reassure, when to say it was okay, when to make yourself smaller so the moment could pass. And over time, that became your role, the calm one, the helpful one, the understanding one, the one who can handle it, the one who does not ask for much, the one who makes things easier for everyone else. British pediatrician and psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott's idea of the false self helps here, but not in the shallow sense of being fake. The false self can be understood as an adaptation, a protective self, a version of you that learns what has to be shown, what has to be hidden, and how to stay acceptable in the environment around you. That is why this pattern deserves compassion. You were not simply pretending. You were adapting. You learned what helped you keep connection. You learned what made you easier to love. You learned which parts of you created tension, and you hid them. But what protects you in one season of life can imprison you in another. Because if the helpful version of you is the only version people ever meet, your real feelings have nowhere to go. And when your real feelings have nowhere to go, resentment starts speaking for them. The version of you that kept everyone comfortable may also be the version that kept your real self unheard. They ask, "Are you okay?" And for 1 second, the truth is there. Not fully formed, not dramatic, just a small heaviness, A small wish to say, "Actually, that hurt," or "I do feel overwhelmed," or "I wish you had noticed I was tired." But almost immediately, you begin calculating. If you say that, will they feel accused? Will the mood change? Will you have to explain too much? Will they think you are making a big deal out of nothing? So you say, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they believe you. That is the part that hurts later. Not only that they did not notice, but that you made it easy for them not to notice. People often think the exhaustion of people-pleasing comes from doing too much, and sometimes it does. But there is a deeper exhaustion. The exhaustion of being split. Outside, you are fine. Inside, you are not fine. Outside, you do not mind. Inside, you do mind. Outside, you can help. Inside, your body is already asking for rest. American psychologist Carl Rogers had a word for this kind of split: incongruence. It is what happens when the person you show outside keeps drifting away from what you actually feel inside. And people-pleasing creates that split through hundreds of small moments. You act calm while you are hurt. You say yes while your body says no. You tell someone it is fine while a part of you is already keeping track. This is why you can help someone and still feel lonely afterward, because they did not meet the whole of you. They met the version of you that was trying not to disappoint them. They received your effort, but not your honesty. They got your availability, but not your reality. A relationship starts to feel unreal when only one person is allowed to be honest. And this is where resentment becomes more than anger. It becomes grief. Grief that people do not know you as deeply as they think they do. Grief that you have been present for everyone else while slowly disappearing from yourself. Many people who try to please others are deeply uncomfortable with anger. Anger feels dangerous. It feels selfish. It feels like becoming the kind of person you promised yourself you would never be. So when anger appears, you explain it away. They probably did not mean it. It is not a big deal. I should be more patient. I am overreacting. Sometimes patience is real. Sometimes understanding is generous. But sometimes what sounds like maturity is actually fear of conflict. Sometimes what you call compassion is the habit of not letting yourself admit that something hurt. Carl Jung's idea of the shadow helps explain why resentment can feel so confusing. The shadow is not only some dark, evil part of you, it is often made of the feelings you are not allowed to admit. For someone who survives by being good, anger can become one of the first things that gets hidden. Because if you are angry, maybe you are not good. If you are disappointed, maybe you are selfish. If you have a limit, maybe you are not as kind as people thought. So anger gets buried. But anger does not disappear because you disapprove of it. It comes back sideways. It comes back as irritation when someone asks for one more thing. It comes back as emotional distance from someone you still care about. It comes back as bitterness after you smile. It comes back as the quiet thought, "Why does everyone always need something from me?" That does not mean you are cruel. It may mean something in you has been silenced for too long. The anger you are not allowed to feel directly often comes out indirectly. And resentment may be the form anger takes when honesty was not allowed to arrive on time. Sometimes you are not even angry at the request itself. You are angry at the version of yourself that appears when the request arrives, the version that smiles too quickly, the version that says yes before checking, the version that already knows how to make someone else comfortable while leaving itself behind. That is why resentment can feel so confusing. You may still love the person, you may still care about them, you may still want them to be okay, but you are tired of who you become around them. You are tired of being the one who understands everything, the one who makes room for everyone's feelings except your own, the one who can always see where other people are coming from, but rarely gets asked where you are coming from. The one who gives people the benefit of the doubt, while quietly doubting whether your own pain is allowed to matter. And this is where the hard truth begins. Sometimes people do take too much. Sometimes they ask without noticing your capacity. Sometimes they become comfortable with your silence. Sometimes they enjoy your kindness without asking what it costs you. That is real. But that may not be the whole story. Sometimes you resent people for crossing a line you kept moving for them. They asked, but they did not always force you. They believed you're sure because you had become very good at making pain sound easy. They did not hear your no because you had learned to hide it before anyone could react to it. They did not know your limit because you kept adjusting it quietly. That realization can hurt, because now resentment is not only about what they took, it is also about the part of you that never learned how to protect the line before resentment had to do it for you. This is not about blaming yourself. It does not mean your fear was fake. It does not mean the pattern is your fault. You may have learned very early that honesty could cost connection. You may have learned that being easy was safer than being real. You may have had good reasons to hide your no. But at some point, the pattern that protected you begins to imprison you. The same habit that once helped you survive starts making it impossible to feel close to yourself. And resentment becomes the signal that the old way is no longer working. So the question is not, why am I such a resentful person? The better question is, where did I keep saying yes when something in me already knew the truth? Where are you hoping someone will notice a boundary you never spoke? Where are you calling it kindness when it is actually fear of being disliked? That is the painful part of resentment. It shows you where a choice still exists, but that choice might cost comfort. The answer is not to become colder. That is the mistake many people make. They think the only alternative to people-pleasing is becoming hard, distant, selfish, or unavailable. But there is another possibility. You can stay kind without using kindness to cover up what you really feel. It begins before the boundary, before the explanation, before the apology, before the anger has built so much that it comes out sharper than you meant. It begins in the half-second before your automatic yes, the tightness in your body, the drop in your energy, the sudden pressure to answer quickly, the quiet wish that someone would say, "You do not have to." That signal is not weakness. It may be the first honest thing in you. The sentence itself is not magic. The pause is what matters. For the first time, fear does not get to answer before you do. So before you say yes, give honesty a little more time to arrive. You do not need to give a perfect no. You do not need to explain your whole inner world. You can start with space. Let me think about it. I need to check my energy first. I'll get back to you. Those sentences may sound small, but they interrupt an old pattern. They create a gap between fear and response. And in that gap, you can ask, do I actually want to say yes? Do I have the capacity? Am I choosing this, or am I trying to avoid someone's disappointment? Then comes the harder part, telling the truth while it is still small. Not after weeks of silent resentment, not after your anger has become too heavy to carry gently. Sooner, more simply. I want to help, but I cannot do that today. I said yes too quickly. I need to adjust that. This is not cruelty. It is not an attack. It is not you becoming selfish. It is you refusing to build another relationship on a version of yourself that cannot tell the truth. Honesty can create discomfort without being cruelty. A boundary can disappoint someone's expectation without being a rejection of them. Someone can feel disappointed, and you can still be a decent person. That may be the hardest thing for a people-pleaser to believe. Because the fear is not only that someone will be upset. The fear is what their disappointment seems to say about you. That you are selfish. That you are difficult. That you are not as good as they thought. But being good cannot mean being endlessly available. Being kind cannot mean being permanently silent. And being loving cannot mean giving people access to you at the cost of your own inner life. The goal is not less kindness. The goal is kindness where you are still present. Kindness where your yes is real. Kindness where your no is allowed to exist. Kindness that brings you closer to people because it no longer requires you to disappear first. Wanting to be kind was never the problem. Wanting peace was never the problem either. The problem is what you had to erase in yourself to keep that peace. If keeping everyone comfortable requires you to disappear, resentment will eventually speak for the part of you that never got to be honest. You do not need to stop caring. You need a form of care that still includes you. Because kindness is not supposed to cost you your entire self, and the relationships worth deepening cannot survive forever on a version of you that keeps disappearing. At some point, people need to know what is actually okay with you and what is not, what you can give, what you cannot give, what hurts, what matters, what has been hidden behind all those automatic yeses. Maybe the goal is not to stop being good to people. Maybe the goal is to stop disappearing in order to be seen as good. So maybe the real question is not, how do I stop caring so much? Maybe the question is, what would your kindness look like if it no longer required you to disappear?